So, Erica, your race is the 30th District of California, which is Western Los Angeles, I believe.
Yeah, it's like the West Valley, the West San Fernando Valley.
And you did something that I think everyone can understand immediately, that everyone kind of aspires to in their lives, but very few people do. You won Teacher of the Year.
Yes. My first year of teaching.
Which is incredible for developing a science curriculum for kids that helped them learn in new ways. Can you talk about how you decided to be an educator and what your initial experiences were? Because a lot of people, I'll just speak for myself, but I think this is pretty universal. Wendy, you can agree with this probably. It's like we all grew up with teachers because we're around teachers. And so a lot of us at one point thought to ourselves, maybe I want to be a teacher. Yes. I think that was a very natural thought for a lot of kids. And so did you always know that you wanted to be a teacher? And then what was your experience like actually getting trained as an educator and then showing up in the public schools?
So no, I never wanted to be a teacher. but what ended up happening was I came across this woman who was like an on-set tutor. And while I was in college, I was like, oh, that seems like a really cool gig to have, while I'm in college. And then I just ended up going through the credential process and I had to do observation hours. And in the classroom that I was assigned to, we had fifth graders that could not even read, Andrew.
Oh,
and
no.
It literally broke my heart because I was in the third grade and I was not fully literate. And so it took that teacher, I still remember her, my parents, getting me everything that I needed to make sure that I can read. And so it was like this instant connection. And then it was in that moment where I decided to devote my life to education. Fast forward, I got my credential, I got my first job, and I was hired as a science teacher because my master's degree is in curriculum and instruction with an emphasis in science. And my principal at the time, she was like, gave me creative freedom. She's like, dream it up. And for a first year teacher, that can be like kind of daunting, like this crazy task. But I was like, you know what? How do I learn? What have I learned through the whole credential process? And I went to my mentor, Professor Baca, who's no longer with us, but she is my mentor. She's shaped how I teach. And I dreamed up something that was hands-on, field trip based, kid-led, the constructive approach to learning. And it ended up getting the kids hyped about science. Like every lesson, every
this is
time.
Like a dream.
It is a dream. And every lesson, every time we were doing hands-on experiments. And it was so fun. And then I was nominated to be Teacher of the Year my very first year by the Los Angeles Clippers. And then that just kind of catapulted my career in education. And at the school that I'm at now is really the model in which I think education should go, where it's field trip, teachers are paid and compensated well, kids are at the priority. Because I think that's what education should be, where the kids are where we start with and superintendents are kind of last. and I think it's part of the reason why it is the reason why I want to be on the education committee in Congress. That's like my end goal.
That would be so wonderful.
That's what I'm working towards. And can I just plug that what's my signature policy that I'm very proud of is my Kids Have a Voice Too program. And so a section of my campaign is literally operated by young people. So they come up with the events, they write policies, they dream up things, and they run a whole section of our campaign. And so basically my goal is to cultivate the next generation of leaders. And I have to give Reverend Wendy a real thank you, because not only has she helped give advice to this program, but she has also participated in different events that my kids in my district have done. And I think that's why I want to lead with her. Because like Wendy will work with anyone that has the best interest of young people. And so I just want to let everyone know, she's for real about young people too. And I think that's what we're missing in education, is letting kids feel empowered and having a voice in the process, especially when they don't get to vote. These policies affect them, but they don't get to vote on them. So it's our responsibility to make sure that they have a space and room at the table. And so that's what I'm excited about.
So I take it you were for my proposal to lower the voting age to 16?
I have it on my platform.
Nice.
I have it on my platform.
It's the same thing. You can pay taxes. Might as well be able to know where it goes.
Right. And one of my girls on my campaign, she wrote a whole presentation for me on why it should be 16 and not 15. So kids really care about this. So thank you for writing on that.
So you've worked in both public and private schools, and this is such like a central issue for so many communities. Like, do you have any thoughts on what you've seen in different environments and what we can do to, frankly, teach our kids better?
Yeah, there is a difference. And I think what it is I think it really comes down to accessibility and resources. So when you work in a private school, you tend to have more resources to do the hands-on, to have creative freedom, to go on field trips, because you're not working through a system. Public schools have different challenges and benefits, right? But I would say when I worked at a public school, the kids were just absolutely astounding. They were just amazing. Like they wanted that. They wanted to have these same experiences. And I think for me, what I had to do was find ways to fund them. And I think that's what I want to fix. Like I want to make sure teachers are paid more and that we are making sure that teachers have resources. Because when teachers have resources, we know that they can flourish. Like teachers should never have to pay for a lesson. Like I worked in public school.
Like all of us are thinking to ourselves, teachers have to pay for lessons.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. And I can't even begin to tell you how much I invested in my own classroom. I'm happy to do it. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but I mean, when you're a teacher, we shouldn't be asking that of teachers though. That's not cool. We shouldn't. And so I really think that we need to reprioritize funding and make sure teachers are compensated well and that teachers get stipends. So something that I'm proposing is that teachers at the beginning of the year get $1,000 stipend so they can invest in their classroom and tailor their curriculum to the resources in which they need to innovate and create and have those hands-on opportunities. And then I think it should be sustained throughout the school year. And obviously there's a lot of public policy. So I'm saying that even if I'm in Washington, I'm willing to work with our local officials to make that stuff possible.
That's a tremendous idea. And one of the things that I'm hearing in your proposals, which I agree with, is that we should be investing resources as close to the kids as possible. And what's closer than the teacher? There's a lot of money getting spent on stuff that is not in that classroom. and paying teachers more, to me, is one of the first moves you make. If you look at the numbers, we're actually spending a good deal in the United States to educate our kids. It's just not enough that's going to the teacher. And the fact that teachers have to do what you've done, which is spend their own money that they don't really have a lot of excess in, to buy materials or lessons for their kids, it's just wrong. So I couldn't agree with you more. So Wendy, on your side, you've done a lot of things, as I said before. You've worked in communications in Capitol Hill. You've been a communications professor. You worked with someone who's like a major force, is Ben Jealous, who's the CEO of the NAACP, who I know. I'm friendly with Ben. I don't know him well. Yeah. We have a lot of people in common. And you've been engaged in criminal justice reform, in environmental issues. And during that time, you've also obviously become a reverend and been ministering to people's spiritual lives. I think we've recently seen a greater intersection between faith and public service. And maybe I'm just thinking of it because of Reverend Warnock's victory in Atlanta, which Absolutely. I'm sure both of you were super pumped about the same way.
Absolutely. Yes. This is a city that is ripe for someone who is looking to come and be involved in a culturally diverse, active, engaging group of citizens who really care about their future. You mentioned Ben. Ben Jealous was the youngest president in the history of the NAACP back in 2008 when I came on alongside Ben, who's a dear friend now, who's actually now the president and CEO of People for the American Way, which is a nonprofit here in DC. So working with Ben and even working at the headquarters in NAACP was an eye-opening experience. I was with Ben during the time that Trayvon Martin was killed. There was a big death penalty case with Troy Davis, for those who might remember Troy Davis, who was on death row, and a lot of advocacy work that went into attempting to save his life. And so, as you mentioned, I was in this sort of social justice service people space that gave me such a sense of wanting to do more and help, because there's such a need, and it can almost feel overwhelming at times. You think you're putting out one fire here and then something raises up over there. And so, having been sort of a person of faith, but not necessarily in ministry, I finally decided to explore that. And actually, when I was working on the Hill, you mentioned that I did work on the Hill for a season as a communications capacity. They had a Bible study there that was led by the current Senate chaplain, Barry Black, Admiral Barry Black. He's the chaplain of the Senate. He's the first African-American to become the chaplain of the Senate. Wonderful guy. Turned out to be a mentor of mine. Actually wrote my recommendation letter to go to seminary at Howard University. So Howard, for me, transformed my life, both as an undergrad and then going back on the master's degree level. And I knew from that point on that it was my calling to serve and to reconnect and to inspire and to motivate people to be what they've been called to be and to do what they've been called to do. And so any types of activities I've become involved in, I'm inspired by them. I don't do things for clout or so some people would say, why Congress? I kind of got that question. One of the things we haven't talked about is that, similar to Erica, we're both running against incumbents. 30-year incumbents. And so you might imagine you have two of us coming along with all of this yang energy, and they're like,
oh, yang energy. I like the sound of that.
And they're asking, where did they come from and what are they attempting to do? But for me, I believe in stepping into roles that you feel connected to. I know when you were running, people used to say, why did he start out at president? Why didn't he start out, at city council or something like that? And like you, the problems were so big, you feel like you need to be at the top of the heap to make any kind of indentation into them. And so for me, also understanding my gifts, I am an advocacy person. I know how to visualize and to speak and to represent. If you need my voice on the record about what is right and what is just and what needs to be done in this moment for this particular group of people or even for this individual group, that's me. I'm your person, and that's why I'm running.